I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Um, Roll call. Is there a quorum present?
Yes.
Thank you. Is our inspirational leader Jeffrey here yet? I don't see him. Are there any communications to be read? Nope. All right. Are there any tabled bills for us to recover? Yeah.
There is. And our inspirational leader has just gotten here as well.
Oh, Jeffrey, we can give you your time now if you're ready.
Thank you. A genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus, but a molder of consensus. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Let us try and lift up as many people as possible and embrace the spirit of diversity, inclusion, and equity for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. We will now get started on our docket here. I believe our first bill on the docket should be the one that we tabled, which was
101.
Oh yeah, White Senate Bill 101. Could the clerk please read the title of the bill for us?
Senate Bill 101, a bill to expand the accessibility of contraceptive devices for Michigan citizens.
All right. Assuming there isn't any opposition, because we already had this bill open earlier, I move to consider the bill as read. If there's any objection, please speak now. All right, I thought so. The floor is now open for discussion on the bill.
Point of order, weren't we on an amendment?
Yes, we are on an amendment.
Was an amendment or an amendment to the amendment?
I believe we passed the amendment. No, I think we passed both the amendments, and we're back on the discussion of the bill in total.
And would the clerk please read what that amendment was?
The amendment we passed before going on to recess was an amendment to strike Section 1 and move Section 3 to be the first section.
Thank you.
Yes, Delegate Paddock.
On Paddock Hastings delegation, I reserve the right to make a motion after I speak.
That is your right.
Previous to the tabling of the bill, there was some discussion. There was some concern with the clause in section, I believe, in one of the sections that said that parental consent would not be required for the obtainment of the contraceptive devices. I would point that speaker to the bill brief. In Colorado, they implemented a similar bill to this one, and their parental consent was also not required. And teen birth and abortion rates fell by almost half when they did that, and also $70 million was saved due to the fall in the medical care that's required when teens don't have access to the devices. So I don't believe that it really matters if parents get consent, because oftentimes parents might not give consent for something that is medically necessary. Now, the motion that I'm going to make isn't quite related to that discussion. It's just I move to make a friendly amendment to Section 5 to replace administered with enforce.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. As soon as there is a second, the friendly amendment has passed. Yes, Delegate Macaluso.
Emma Macaluso, Elk Rapids High School delegation. Point of information, if anyone knows, what is Michigan's rainy day fund? Because I'm just wondering if that's how they specify this bill being paid for. And I just worry that there might not be enough money in that fund to give free contraceptive methods to all these people in the state of Michigan who need it. So I'm just wondering about the logistics of that fund.
Is there anyone here who can answer her question? Yes, Delegate Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Tinker, working with the delegation. I think Michigan's rainy day fund is funding set aside by the Michigan government for specific purposes like I think a natural disaster or something like that. I'm sure there is rules in regard of what can be used. Let's see. Okay, the Center of Cynical, okay, et cetera, et cetera. It was created in 1977 to serve as Michigan's saving account to assist in stabilizing revenues during period of economic recession. Okay, so this was originally, it currently has $1.1 billion as of 2019. But I'm not sure of the mechanisms to use it. And yes, so that's what it basically is. It's for economic recession was the original intent of the bill, according to Michigan.gov.
All right, thank you. Does that answer your question, Senator Macaluso? All right, I'm glad. The chair recognizes Senator Paddock.
Paddock Hastings delegation. Also in reference to the cost of the bill, as mentioned, Colorado saved 70 million after implementing a similar system. So it's reasonable to assume that Michigan would also save an amount, perhaps not the same, but the rainy day fund would then not have to be used after a certain amount of time due to the increased budget that would come from not spending as much on the more expensive services that would occur if teenage pregnancy wasn't reduced with this bill.
Thank you, Delegate.
Point of information to a previous speaker. Is there any proof that just because it worked in Colorado, which is a very different state from Michigan, that it would work equally as well in Michigan?
The principle is the same in that the contraceptive devices such as hormonal pills and IUDs are less expensive than what the state spends on abortions or childcare, especially seeing as the types of people who would be more likely to need free contraceptive devices are the types who wouldn't then be able to afford to raise a child, and so they would need welfare. I can look for a scholarly source on the subject, but that'll take a few minutes.
Point of information on your previous comment, you mentioned it's cheaper than abortion, or it's cheaper than the state paying for abortion. I know at least on the federal level, due to the notorious Hyde Amendment, federal funds cannot be used to pay for any abortion as of right now. And so does Michigan State pay for abortion?
Again, I'll have to check that. I know that the Hyde Amendment only applies to federal funds, so I don't know of any such amendment to bills in Michigan, but I can check.
So in other words, because I don't think Michigan pays for abortion. I think it's insurance providers or you have to pay out of pocket. Is that correct?
I just Googled it and it says that public funding is available for abortion in the case of life endangerment, rape, or incest. And especially in the case of younger people, life endangerment is more likely. So then there is, at least to some extent, public funding from the state of Michigan for some abortions.
But in the normal to consenting young people who probably are dating or having a one-night stand, consenting, and they got the girl pregnant, that would not be paid for by the state. Is that correct? Because that is not, it was consensual.
If the abortion, if the pregnancy carried through normally and there weren't any complications, though complications are very possible for young people due to the fact that their bodies aren't fully developed to handle a pregnancy.
Because I'm sure, I think the Hyde Amendment does make an exception for rape, incest, or well-being of the mother. So like this exact same thing in the state of Michigan, is that correct?
That's what it seems.
Okay, so in other words, Michigan generally does not pay for abortion. The
Not
state
for,
government.
Not for abortion in general.
Okay. Are you back?
All right. The chair recognizes Senator Macaluso.
Emma Macaluso, Elk Rapids High School delegation. In response to a previous speaker, I think that what said previous speaker was trying to get at as far as Michigan paying for these services is not necessarily the state of Michigan paying for these abortions, but the added costs that come when teenagers get pregnant and have children, more likely to be on welfare, more likely to need government services as a result of that pregnancy. And so whether or not the state of Michigan directly is paying for these abortions or not, they do pay for the pregnancy that occurs. And by having this bill give contraceptives preemptively before they're pregnant would cut the costs that Michigan has to pay later down the road for those children.
Point of information to a previous speaker, that is under the assumption that the child or that the parent will be on welfare, is that correct? Or some sort of state assistance?
Yeah.
So that would not occur in all cases, or even a majority of cases, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The chair recognizes Senator Paddock.
Matt Paddock, Hastings delegation. In response to a previous speaker, young mothers are generally less financially stable than mothers who are adults. And so it's not unlikely for a young mother to be on welfare after having a child. I'm currently trying to find the statistics for exactly what proportion of children and so this I'm not finding anything on the exact proportion of single mothers who are on welfare, but it's younger mothers especially would be more prone to be due to just the fact that they are younger, and if they wouldn't have had access to it due to contraceptive devices due to the cost, and that would imply that they're also not as financially stable as well, because if they were financially stable and not the type that would likely be on welfare, then they would have simply paid for the contraceptive devices, because this bill gives access to those who can't afford them. So people who already can't afford them then wouldn't be likely to have to be on welfare, but people who can't afford them would be likely to be on welfare. So there is that cost benefit, and it would stand to reason that it's well over half. Although I still haven't found a specific number because this isn't apparently something that's been studied.
All right, thank you. The chair recognizes Senator Drew.
Thank you. Emily Drew, Wayland delegation. After a quick Google search in regards to the previous delegate or a past delegate, Michigan.gov says, in Michigan, the average annual cost associated with a child born to a mother 17 and younger is $4,951. More than 218,000 teen births in Michigan, costing taxpayers a total of $5.8 billion over that period between 1991 and 2004.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Senator Paddock. Are you aware your hand is still raised? Okay. The chair recognizes Senator Jeffrey Quinn.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Jeffrey Cranbrook, Kansas delegation. I reserve the right to make a motion.
That is your right.
So first of all, I'd like to say that I disagree with Section 7. This action will be funded through the Michigan Rainy Day Fund. This bill and in the bill brief does not mention how much this would cost. And this could potentially cost more than Colorado's $70 million in the process. And I'd like to know where the statistics for that is. But also in terms of that, this mandates that we'll provide access to contraceptive devices, this is a yearly reoccurring thing. People don't stop having sex every year. And so therefore you need to continue to provide birth controls, condoms, etc. Did she even mention condoms? Anyway, whatever she mentioned, this is a reoccurring yearly thing. And so this would mandate in perpetuity. And so I don't think that, and also based on what I said previously, that the Michigan Rainy Day Fund is for, quote, savings account to assist in stabilizing revenues during periods of economic recession. I don't think this is the right funding source for this bill, as this seems more of a healthcare and under jurisdiction of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Let's see, I'd like to amend section 7. Through this act will be funded through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seeing as there's a second, the author of the amendment is now invited to share
Thank
their
you.
reasoning.
Jefferson Kramer King's delegation. So again, the Michigan Rainy Day Fund, which is the current funding source, is not supposed to be used. It's supposed to be used to stabilize revenues during a period of economic recession. And for example, COVID would be a great use for that. For example, the restaurants or businesses who have gone under, et cetera. So I believe, because this is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Health and Human Services, that this bill should be funded as well through the Department of Health and Human Services. And that is why I put this amendment. Thank you.
The floor is now open for discussion on the amendment. All right, if there's no discussion on this amendment, then we'll move to a vote on the amendment. All in favor of passing this amendment, please signify with a yes, and any opposed with a no. In the opinion of the chair, the yeses have it, the amendment has passed. If not already, can you put that in the chat? Please, Jeffrey.
I think I just put it.
You did?
Funded, oh, there's spelling errors, but funded through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Delegate. All right, we're back to discussion on the bill as a whole.
Point of information.
Yes, Delegate.
Jefferson Kramer King's delegation. So this bill does not mention how much this would cost. And I don't know the exact statistics, but how much would this generally cost? Because I'm sure this would cost a substantial amount.
Can anyone, Senator Bowers, can you answer that for us?
It states in the bill brief, so it says in the state of Michigan, forms of birth control can cost over $15,000 for individuals without health insurance. So I'm sure somewhere around that number, probably.
Is that per person? Because there's no way to only cost $1,500 for the state to implement this program. I meant in total, because that's just for one person in a theoretical scenario without health insurance. So if they want it, what if they want it every month? Like, is that to pay for the pill? Is that to pay for whatever? And, you know, people don't, again, stop having sex. So like, this is a reoccurring cost. So how much would this cost, for example, from the Michigan state government or for taxpayers per month, per year, et cetera? And as the population increase or more people find out about this program would like to take advantage of it, I assume it would increase. So how much would this cost, for example, per month or per year? And what is the projected cost? Because nowhere does it mention in the bill brief, et cetera, how much this currently would cost.
Can anyone answer that? That was a question, right?
How much would it cost to implement this program per year or for the next decade projection? Because this is a very expensive project.
Senator Bowers, are you raising your hand to answer? No?
I think
Senator
Senator
Macaluso, are you?
Macaluso.
Are you ready to answer, Macaluso?
Yeah, I can try. Emma Macaluso, Elk Rapids High School delegation. As none of us are the bill authors and don't really have those kind of facts on hand, I think that we're both kind of in the same boat as far as figuring that out for themselves. But as far as my answer goes, I don't think that whatever the number specifically is, studies have shown that preemptive measures cost less than what the state is paying for pregnancies now, which is why this bill was introduced. So the fact that this program would end up costing less than what's already in place is, I think, the only relevant information that we need to know when considering this bill.
I mean, while like, I mean, to your point, like while the bill might, yes, I'm not, this, my question is not whether this is a good idea or not. I'm just saying how much of it, how much does it cost? Obviously, I do support providing more contraceptives to prevent, unwanted pregnancies, et cetera, and to help family planning, for like just as a general idea. But if this bill is marketed as like it will save the state money, I'm not sure that's necessarily true. But even if it doesn't, or even if it costs the state a lot of money to implement, just say it costs $70 million, perhaps it's worthwhile to do so. And so my question was, would this cost less than, for example, the Colorado saving $70 million in the process? But just say it saves $70 million, but just say it cost $80 million to implement. That's still a $10 million hypothetical cost for the taxpayers. So again, I'm not saying this is a bad idea, but do you know the cost, or does someone know the cost of the original implementation? Or even a ballpark, because this will obviously cost millions of dollars. And as this is funded through the Department of Health and Human Services, like, would this cost a tax increase? What would this require based on the cost?
I'm sorry, Delegate, but I don't think there's an answer for your question at this time. And time for debate has elapsed for this specific bill, seeing as we're 20 minutes in and we've already spent time on this bill and we have plenty of other bills to get to. So I'm going to have to move us on to a vote on this bill as a whole. All in favor of passing this bill, please signify by saying yes. And all those who are opposed, give us a little no. Okay, in the opinion of the chair, the yeses have it. The bill has passed. My time as Lieutenant Governor is over now. My condolences, guys. I'm going to leave. You are now in the hands of my assistant, or not my assistant, my co-partner, Senator Bowers.
Oh my God.
No hesitation, Mr. President. No hesitation, my assistant.
Oh gosh. Okay, well, next bill on the docket, we did get a bill back from the House that was amended, which was Senate Bill 517. So, will the clerk please read the title of this bill?
517?
Yes.
All right. Senate Bill 517, a bill to mandate that all public schools must have school nurses.
All right. Without objection, the chair moves to consider the bill read.
Hang on, I think there might be a minute.
Oh, yes, the amendment that was made in the House. Yes.
The amendment made in the House is a friendly amendment in Section 2 to edit the words to be properly written as in-school, walk-in space case, and may. And then the Senate amendments that we have made previously is to add a Section 7 that reads as there shall be one school nurse per every 750 kids as recommended by National Association of School Nurses. Amendment in Section 6, 1 school year after passage. Amendment to Section 3 so that it reads as penalty for not hiring or having a local nurse in the building shall lose 5% of state funding for the next school year. And then a friendly amendment in Section 3 to change the word loose to lose. And if you'll give me a moment, I can probably find the veto reason.
It wasn't vetoed, it just came back from the House because they made
Okay.
the friendly amendment.
Because there is also a veto reason, but I don't know if we already went
Really?
over that. Yeah, because it said Governor Ladd had vetoed it 2 hours ago.
Oh, okay.
We as a cabinet disagree with this bill due to the penalization of schools. We believe certain schools do not have the need for a full-time nurse, and this would harm schools in this position. We do not want to punish schools and take money away for not needing a nurse. So in this case, because it is a veto, we need 2/3 to overrule.
All right, do we want to discuss anything before we vote on it? Does anyone yes, the floor is now open for discussion. We are on Senate Bill 517. The chair recognizes Senator Jeffrey.
Jeffrey T. Cranberry Kings with delegation. Ew, what happened to my name? Anyway, so is there any point of information? What is the current standards for school nurses? What is the current Michigan standard? Because I know this bill mandates 1 nurse per 750 students, but what is the current standard in Michigan?
Is there someone here that could answer that question? I know earlier, I think Senator Paddock pulled up a website that said that there should be 1 nurse per 750 students. I'm not sure if that would answer your question, but.
So are we not changing the standards at all? If it was 1 per 700?
No, this bill would be mandating that every school needs a school nurse. Right now, I believe, oh, it was someone else who found that. Sorry, I misspoke, but I remember that happening. This bill would be mandating that every school needs one. I don't think at the moment that's a law right now.
So that's not the law. So what's law currently?
Is there anyone that could answer that question? The chair now recognizes Senator Gaskill.
Currently, there is no requirement to have school nurses, as previously stated by another senator. It is suggested that there is 1 per every 750, but currently Michigan schools, there is no statutory requirement for Michigan schools to employ a nurse. And then this comes from michigan.gov with a PDF if you'd like a link.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I yield back.
Okay, the chair now recognizes Senator Dybel.
Charlie Dybel, Saginaw Heritage Delegation. Seeing as we've already gone through this bill and approved everything earlier today, I feel like we don't really need to have any discussion, if any, at all on this bill. And seeing as there's plenty of other bills, I think we should just move to previous question now. So I forgot to reserve my right to make a motion, but if anyone else wants to make a motion, go ahead.
Point of order, you're actually not allowed to reserve your right to move to previous question after you speak. That's the only right you are not allowed to have.
Okay, the chair now recognizes Senator Paddock.
Matt Paddock, Hastings delegation. I move the previous question.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of moving to previous question, please signify by clicking the yes, and all opposed, click the no. And in the opinion of the chair, the yeses have it. We will now move to overriding the youth governor's veto, which we will need a 2/3 majority vote, I believe. So all in favor of doing so, please signify by clicking yes, and all opposed, click no. All righty, there's 8 yeses and 2 nos. So I believe that is 2. Oh, now there's 6, but at the height, yes, there was 8 yeses and 2 nos. So yeah, the veto, we did override the veto. You want to click that on there? Okay. Awesome. Okay, next up. what is this bill that we just had pop up? There's just a bill that was added to the docket, sorry. Senate Bill 113. That one was discussed yesterday. So we can go to that. Vetoed bills hit the top of the docket. Yes. All right, we can go to that one next. So will the clerk please, oh, we can, okay, ignore that. I'm ignoring that. Okay, next up on the docket. We have House Bill, I believe. Yes, House Bill 314. Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, there's confusion. Okay, Senate Bill 113. That one was amended by the House, so that's why it's back on our docket. All right, so will the clerk please read the title of this bill?
For clarification, 314 or 113?
Oh my gosh. 113. I'm sorry.
Thank you. White Senate Bill 113, a bill to limit the price of prescription drugs to a gross margin of 100% at every level of the supply chain. The amendments to this include, or the House amendments include, an amendment to Section 5 to read, any party selling prescription drugs at a price exceeding a gross margin of 100% shall be fined by the state at an amount that makes their resulting gross margin 50%. The bill will be enforced by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Change all gross margin to profit, including the title. Amend Section 3 to read, gross margin shall be defined as price minus cost divided by cost. That is all.
Okay, without objection, the chair would like, I move to consider the bill read. All right, so the bill is now open for discussion. The chair recognizes Senator Niswonger.
Thank you, Madam President. Mackenzie Niswonger, Glasson delegation. I'm in complete agreement with this bill. I think the inflation of the price of prescription drugs is absolutely disgusting, and I think it is actively threatening the lives of Michigan citizens. So I am in full support of the passage of this bill as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this bill?
Point of information. Jefferson Curran Council delegation, what is the current margin on average that drug companies sell to?
Is there anyone here that can answer this question? The chair now recognizes Senator Dybel.
Tyler Dybel, Saginaw Heritage Delegation. I can't speak for all prescription drugs, and I know they're not all quite as dramatic as insulin is, but insulin, as of a year or two ago, in the US, the average cost was about $360, India $112, Japan $70, UK $65, and Italy $19. So we are grossly above the rest of the world in terms of at least insulin margins. I don't know about everywhere else, but I can assume that pattern follows throughout the rest of prescription drugs, at least to a certain degree.
Does that answer your question?
No, I didn't ask the price. I meant what is the gross margin? Because this bill limits gross margin to 100%. So what is the general, or what is the current average for pharmaceutical? Is it like 300 gross margin? Is it 250? So what is the current average for pharmaceutical companies?
Senator Paddock, are you able to answer this bill or this question? Sorry.
Matt Paddock, Hastings delegation. I just pulled up a chart of the average markup range, a chart of markup ranges. The average seems to be around 400%. And that's a low estimate of the markup. And the bill was amended to use the phrasing of markup rather than margin, because profit margin is actually a technical term that was being misused in the bill, that doesn't quite refer to what the bill's intention was, which is why the title was changed, and why markup was used instead. So it's around 400-500%. And a lot of oftentimes let's see if I can add up these numbers, and around almost a quarter of the time it's over 600%, and it's over 10,000%, 8% of the time. It's only less than 100%, 2% of the time currently.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, the chair now recognizes Senator Mitchell.
Catherine Mitchell, Miles Level Delegation. My concern with this bill is that it should be more of a federal bill, because the Michigan government only has so much power, and the way that it is worded, it sounds like we're just talking about any pharmaceutical manufacturer in Michigan or any pharmaceutical seller in Michigan, which I don't really know if we have the ability to do that, because what if you like cross state lines and they don't want to sell it to you for anything less than a 400% profit, as was mentioned. If I'm misreading the bill, please inform me, but I believe this is more of a federal issue.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Senator Jeffrey.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Jeffrey T. Cranbrook, Kingswood Delegation. I reserve the right to make a point. Thank you. So, first of all, in response to a previous speaker, in terms of a jurisdiction, Michigan, of course, has jurisdiction over everything in Michigan, including pharmaceutical companies. If they have locations in Michigan, if they have companies in Michigan, we have, of course, have jurisdiction. Now, obviously, the federal government also has jurisdiction, and if they want to mandate through the United States, they can do so. And many companies, especially drug or pharmaceutical companies, operate on a global scale, and their price point and their margin and their production is different across the world based on laws, based on what the consumer is willing to pay. And it's currently, and I do think that drugs, especially as someone mentioned, insulin is too high, and people need insulin to survive. So I do think that we should rein in these pharmaceutical companies. In terms of what we can do, and actually the state of Michigan actually can have a federal effect. For example, my mom works for Ford, and like in terms of Ford, for example, California has the highest emission standards across the nation. So Ford meets the highest, and Ford, GM, other car companies meet the highest standard of most strict standards for environmental regulations, because it's cheaper than creating two models of cars, selling it in California versus the rest of the United States. So actually, if we have the highest standards for this bill for drugs, drug companies might be forced to adapt to or might be forced to meet the most strict criteria. So we can have an effect, and as the EPA do in California. In terms of my point of information to anyone. So I understand companies, obviously we're capitalist nation. They need to make money. Now, obviously insulin, for example, is probably too high, but what is the amount, or what is the gross profit or markup necessary for them to maintain or have profit enough to develop life-saving drugs or to develop research, etc.? So what is the general average necessary profit margin that they need to make?
Senator Paddock, is your hand up to answer the question? Okay, go ahead.
I'm Matt Paddock, Hastings Delegation. The way that the development of drugs is actually encouraged isn't through a particular profit margin or markup. It's actually through through patent protections. When a company develops a drug, they have a certain period in which they're the only one allowed to produce it. So everyone buys the drug from them. That's the current system, I believe, throughout most of the country. This is something that I did a research project on last year, was prescription drugs and how the market works with them. So it's not through the price, like the drug development isn't encouraged by the price of the drugs, but by the patent protection. And so they have the exclusivity to that market once the drug is developed.
Does that answer your question?
No. And in terms of previous point, they might have exclusivity, or patent, but it only just say 5-10 years and it expires, of course. In terms of, I'll rephrase my question. So, but in terms of cost, drug companies have people, they need to pay their employees, they need to pay their factories, et cetera. What is and obviously just say the drugs, they make it just say for $2. They cannot sell it for $2, they'll go broke. They can't pay their employees, et cetera. So what is the total cost for the drug markup necessary? Is it like 50%? Is it 100%? For a company to maintain, to meet all its resources, pay its people, et cetera, and continue to develop new drugs?
I would refer you to section 2, where cost includes materials, labor, and other costs that are a direct result of obtaining. Development of a drug. So to develop a new drug would be a cost of obtaining that drug. So then that is included then in the formula that is used to define their markup. So if whatever they sell it for covers the cost of development, that's permitted in the bill. And then so everything, the markup isn't how much they're allowed to sell it for, it's how much they're allowed to sell it for past what covers their cost. So everything that covers their cost is already covered by the markup that is allowed. And then there's an additional 100% profit, which isn't what they use to develop the company. It is just the profit of the company.
So for clarification, if I need to sell insulin, I'm a drug company, and need to sell insulin at a 200% markup just to meet employee costs, et cetera, this bill would allow me to sell at a 300% markup, adding the 100%.
At that point, just the word markup doesn't refer just to like the material cost, it is also labor. So meeting with like employee requirements means that how much it costs to pay for those employees is included in the costs that are used in the calculation. So a 100% markup means, so if you have to pay $100,000 for your employees, and then you have to pay $200,000 for materials, and then it takes you 5 years to develop it, and that costs you $1 million. All of that is included in the initial costs calculation, so that whatever you charge at, you are allowed to charge to cover those costs for the drug. You just aren't allowed to charge past 100%. Well, to charge double that. So you can't. So if in total all the costs to get and develop the drug and now it's ready for market are like $5 million, you can't sell so that you project your profits to be more than, well, you can't sell so that you project your revenue to be over 10 million.
Okay. Are you back?
All right. Well, seeing that we only have about 8 minutes left, and I would like to get through at least one more bill, we are going to move on a direct vote on passing Senate Bill 113. All in favor of doing so, please signify by clicking the yes, and all opposed, please signify by clicking no. All right, in the opinion